Good morning and welcome back to another one of my videos. If you're new to my channel, welcome. My name is Lotta and today I'm going to show you how to make this really delicious poppy seed marzipan Swiss roll. Now this Swiss roll is made up of a poppy seed sponge cake that is going to be filled with a whipped cream filling as well as some sour cherries, and then it's going to be topped with a layer of marzipan. So without further ado, let's jump right into it and start with our sponge cake. Foam is very hard to drink. Whew. That was just hot coffee. Okay, we're gonna set that aside for now. Now for our poppy seed sponge cake, we're going to need 3 room temperature eggs, 75 grams of sugar with a good pinch of salt, a good splash of vanilla extract, 75 grams of flour, 1 teaspoon of baking powder, 40 grams of poppy seeds, and I'm also adding some Bittermandel aroma, which is basically like almond extract. It's not quite the same. This one tastes a little bit different. I'm not sure if you can buy it everywhere. It's from Dr. Oetker. I'm sure there's other brands as well. I just have it and it always reminds me of like marzipan and Christmas. So I'm going to add it. Feel free to just add almond extract or just leave it out in general. And if you don't want your cake to be quite as full of poppy seeds, feel free to also just add 25 grams instead of the 40 grams that I'm using. That being said, we're making our sponge cake just like we normally would. We're going to start by whisking together our eggs, sugar, salt, vanilla, and our almond extract until that is super light and fluffy and doubled in size. And then we can just go ahead and quickly sift and fold in our dry ingredients. Our sponge cake can wander into the oven that's been preheated to 360 degrees Fahrenheit or 180 degrees Celsius, and it's going to bake for about 10 to 12 minutes. Again, just check depending on your oven. It might take a few minutes more or a few minutes less. You basically just want it to be nice and golden brown. Perfect timing. Okay. Now while our sponge cake is baking, we can already go ahead and prep our kitchen towel with about 2 teaspoons of sugar. Now the sugar is basically just going to help absorb any of the moisture from your cake, and it's also going to make sure that our sponge cake doesn't end up sticking to our kitchen towel. And I'm just putting the sugar roughly where the cake is going to be. That way it's not going to end up running out of the towel and getting all over my kitchen. And I'm not wasting as much sugar. Now once the sponge cake is done baking, I usually like letting it cool off just for like a few minutes, maybe like 5 minutes or so, just so that it's a little bit easier to handle. And then I'm just going to throw it onto my kitchen towel, and then we can roll it up short end to short end. Now we need to let our cake cool off completely before we can even think about putting our filling into it. So I'm going to put it in the fridge for a little bit and then finish off the cooling just on the counter. You want it to be at room temperature when you add your filling and when you unroll it. That way it's less likely to crack, which is obviously what you want. So just to quicken up the cooling just a little bit, I'm gonna put it in the fridge for like maybe an hour, and then we'll see. There's room in the fridge. Now while the cake is cooling, we can already go ahead and prep our filling. So the first thing I'm going to do is just drain my cherries. Now I'm gonna set a few of these onto the side in case I want to do some decorating. 2. I want the pretty ones. 3. Oh. Where are all the pretty ones? Okay. 4. Now the rest of the cherries I'm going to cut up into quarters. That way they're just a little bit smaller and it's going to make rolling up our Swiss roll a little bit easier. Get out as much juice first. Okay. And like always, I'm going to save the juice. I'm going to use part of it to add a little bit more moisture to my Swiss roll, and the rest of this I can either just drink or I can use in other things, but we're honestly just going to end up drinking it. Now I'm just adding my chopped up pieces into a bowl with a little bit of kitchen towel, and that's just going to help absorb a little bit of the extra moisture because I don't want my Swiss roll to get too soggy. There. Now you don't have to watch me cut up all these cherries, so I'm just going to see you when these are all chopped up. We can set our cherries aside for now while we make our whipped cream. Now the main part of our filling is basically just whipped cream. I'm using 450 milliliters, 20 grams of powdered sugar, and a good splash of vanilla extract. We're essentially just going to add this all into a bowl and whisk it until we have some nice stiff peaks. Okay, that's good. You can definitely taste all the vanilla. It's good though. Now, if you're not using your whipped cream immediately, I recommend putting it into the fridge because cream technically always wants to be cold. So that's what I'm going to do while I get everything else set up for actually layering our cake. Now my least favorite part is unrolling the sponge cake because it's really the moment of truth of whether or not it cracked or not. So just do it carefully. Good. Now onto our poppy seed sponge cake, we are going to add a healthy amount of whipped cream. I usually like to leave a little gap right at the end because usually when you roll it up there is a little bit of extra filling that kind of squeezes towards the end anyways, and that way you kind of have a clean finish without all of the filling spilling out. That being said, I'm not using all of this whipped cream because I do want a little bit for the outside of my Swiss roll as well as to do some decorating, so I think I'll end up using about 2/3 of this. Maybe like so. And the rest is going back in the fridge. And I just realized that I forgot to add my cherry juice onto my sponge cake. Yeah, it's too late now, so feel free to do that yourself on your own cake, but I guess mine will have to do without. At least it'll still get some cherry flavor from the actual cherries. So I'm just gonna sprinkle these right onto my cake and kind of spread them out. And you can press them in a little bit as well, that way rolling is gonna be a little bit easier. Now we just very carefully roll it up and then also wrap it in the towel to make sure that it stays closed. Okay. A little scared. She's gonna go back into the fridge for maybe an hour or so just to let everything kind of set before we roll her out of the towel and we can decorate. So it's been about an hour, and at this point we can basically just cover the entire outside with some of our leftover whipped cream. Now, just to make decorating everything a little bit easier, I've got like a weird setup going on here. That way it's just going to be a little bit easier to then transfer it to my actual cake platter. So for now I'm just going to go with it like this. Now you really don't need a lot of whipped cream on the outside of your Swiss roll. You basically just need it to be covered a little bit because it's just going to act as a glue for our marzipan that's going to go over it. So I'm gonna put both of these back into the fridge for now. Before I do that actually, I'm just gonna measure the length of my cake so I know how long I have to roll out my marzipan. Okay, I'm gonna roll it out to about 26 centimeters, and that gives me just a little bit of extra wiggle room on the sides. Now I have a package of marzipan that's 200 grams, so I'm just gonna use that. I probably won't even end up using all of it, and I'll have excess on the sides that I can just cut up and either use for decor or something else. Now the important thing is when you're rolling out your marzipan, you wanna use powdered sugar and not flour. And sometimes it's also helpful to just knead your marzipan once before you roll it out, just to get everything kind of mixed in a little bit. And if you have some hard chunks of marzipan that's a little bit more dried out, this is just gonna help mix everything together. Sticky. And pre-shaping it into a nice little rectangle is also going to make it a little bit easier to roll out into the shape that you want. Onto my powdered sugar, more on top, and some on the rolling pin as well. Now while I clean up, I'm going to put this back in the fridge again just to let everything set a little bit, and after we can decorate with the leftover whipped cream, our leftover cherries, and we can also cut off the back and the front so that we have a beautiful swirl. Time for the final touches. Again, feel free to decorate however you want. I'm just using a spiky tip and my cherries. And there's our cherry poppy seed marzipan Swiss roll. So that's going to be everything for today's video. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up or write me a comment down below. And as always, the entire recipe is going to be in the description box as well.